when I grew up, I grew up in a very small town in Central California, and there were 2 movie theaters there, and we'd go to the movies every once in a while, and I enjoyed the movies, but I didn't become obsessed with them or anything. I mean, as I got older, I just sort of go to the movies to chase girls. I didn't really know that there was actually something on the screen, and but I'd always been interested in visual art, and in the early years, I used to listen to these kind of Disney story records. You put the story on and then you turn the page and you got to see the pictures as you did it. And I listened to a lot of radio. And I love to imagine what was actually happening and, filling in the blanks. And then eventually we got a television when I was about 10 years old, and watched that, but in the beginning there wasn't very much. So I really wasn't that aware. I liked art, I liked drawing, I liked photography, those sorts of things. And it was just by happen chance that I ended up with a good friend of mine that was going to USC Business School, talking me to go to USC, and she said they've got a photography school, so why don't you go there, because you'd like photography. I wanted to go to Art Center. My father refused to let me go. He said, you want to pay for it yourself, but at that point, Art Center was like one of the most expensive universities in the country. And so I said, okay, and I got there and I said, this isn't photography, it's a cinematography. And it's not really cinematography, it's movies, it's cinema. I said, I can't imagine that they have a course at a university where you learn how to make movies. And it was there that I fell in love with movies. It really wasn't until I was, 20 years old.
How interesting. And I want to talk about mentoring and whether you feel you've had mentors along the way. And you found one in Francis Coppola, of course. Right. And why don't you tell us how that came about, and why do you think you two connected the way you did?
Well, Francis became famous. He's about 5 years older than I am, but he was the first film student to actually make it into the film industry. He started working for a Canadian company called Seven Arts as a writer, because he'd won UCLA won the Samuel Goldwyn writing scholarship. And so they hired him and they said, well, we just bought this book, turn it into a screenplay, we want it done in 2 weeks. And so that's basically what he did for a living. And out of that, he talked them into letting him direct a movie, and he got to do some writing on some good movies like Is Paris Burning and Patton. And of course, they'd always then give it to another writer to once they had it where they could hang another writer, they'd say, okay, here, we got a script that's done, but it needs a rewrite. So you don't have to do the whole thing. But he got a job to direct Finian's Rainbow, and then again, one of those quirky realities is that then Seven Arts bought Warner Brothers. This Canadian company bought Warner Brothers. And I had gotten a Warner Brothers scholarship for the summer where you go, it's a work scholarship, 6 months. You go to Warner Brothers, they assign you to a department, script, photography, editing, any department. And you spend 6 months there working with professionals. Well, as it turned out, they had just closed down. Jack Warner was leaving, and there was nothing going on. All the departments had been closed. There was nobody there.
In fact, didn't you say that the day you arrived, Jack Warner was
the day I arrived,
leaving?
They were moving stuff out, and I said, what's going on? And I said, well, they were moving Jack out of his office. He's, because it was literally the week that Seven Arts was taking over. And and they said, well, we don't know what to do because there's no departments that are open and all this kind of stuff. The only thing we can do is stick you on the back lot because we're shooting one movie. It's the only thing that's happening here now. So they put me on this movie, and it was being directed by a kid who was 5 years older than I was, who had a beard and went to film school, and so we immediately hit it off. I had, just before that, had another scholarship working for Carl Foreman at Columbia. And there we got to actually shoot little behind-the-scenes movies, and it was more fun. And so I just said, look, and I had a tour, and I'd gone over to the animation department, which is where I started in film school, and it was empty. And I said, well, I'll just skip this, and I'm going to go over to the animation department, find some short ends, and make a movie. And then
Explain short ends for those who don't know.
short ends, this is in the old days, when you had to pay for film, and it was really expensive. And as I say, when you were doing independent films there, in those days, it was going to cost you at least $150,000, $200,000 just to buy the raw stock, have it processed, rent the cameras and do all that stuff. So to make a movie, it was just impossible to do unless you could come up with a few $100,000. So everybody would steal shorthands. When you finish shooting, they'd take what's left in the camera and they'd just toss it. And so you could get that, and it'd be like 100 feet or 50 feet or whatever, and you'd splice it all together and you'd use it to make a movie with. But Francis found out about it, and he said, I heard you were going to transfer to the animation department. What's that all about? And I said, well, I think you're boring. I said, I've done this. I don't want to do Hollywood movies. I have no interest in this at all. I'm really going to go off and be a documentary cameraman. I'm going to do more experimental type of films. I do not like character-driven drama. I don't like plots. I'm not into this stuff. Cinema is pure. It's not photographing a stage play. It's not photographing a book. It's pure. It's its own medium. So he liked that, but he was a stage director, and he was also a writer. And I think that ultimately is why we got along so well, because I was basically a camera guy. I'd been working as a cameraman and an editor, and he was working, directing stage plays and writing screenplays. So there was a match there. I was really good at some of the stuff he didn't know that much about, and he was really good at the stuff I didn't know about because I had no interest in going there. Mm-hmm. But, we were both young and we both had beards, and